Going to take the North and never give it back.
So that's a good pick. You get the corner. I got to go bold, right? I got to go bold for this.
Yeah, she's got some nice long
Welcome
hair.
back to the Unbearable Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Brad Barron. Make sure to like and subscribe out there on YouTube, and always rate the show 5 stars everywhere that you get your podcast. It is draft week. We have 7 days until the greatest day ever, the NFL draft, when the Chicago Bears will draft Caleb Williams as a starting quarterback. But today, what we're going to be breaking down is the top offensive tackles. We talked about this 2 days ago, where it seems like the Bears might have interest in offensive tackles. So what we're going to be breaking down is the top 10. And I'll also talk a little bit about some of the later round offensive tackles that are out there as well. And as always, share some of your favorites down below. Also, for those watching, if the camera looks a little different, I'm using Johnny PayPal's old camera. Right now, I'm getting a new camera, so it'll look a lot better than what it is right now. But it's good to be back. It's good to have another show out here talking about the offensive tackles. So let's get right into this, right? We don't have to wait around. And if you haven't already, make sure to download the free draft guide in the description. Just simply click the link and you can download it and favorite it so that it'll keep on updating, and there'll be more and more prospects for you. But let's get this show on the road, shall we? So I want to talk how I grade these offensive tackles, because it's slightly different than our classic day 3, early day 3, day 2 that I normally do. What I ended up doing, and I'm blocking out the top 10, but the way that I did this, and if you have the draft guide, you've already seen this. I have day 3 prospects at the very bottom. Now, that is nothing crazy. You know, Garrett Greenfield is someone to look out for. And then also, I liked Walter Rouse out of Oklahoma a little bit too. And then there's also swing tackles. Now, Christian Jones out of Texas is one of my favorite swing tackles you can get. Matt Goncalves, the tackle out of Pittsburgh, is another player. Like, some good swing tackles. But then my top 4 categories, I have developmental projects, starters with questions, starters, and elite. And a lot of that was, I was just watching these tackles, and I'm one where I think that, like, a lot of the development inside of the tackles, it's, can you block? Yes or no? And yes, you can develop throughout the years, but at tackle, I feel like you have to just be able to block. And the data shows it too. You should draft tackles early, because the first rounders are the freaks of athletes, and that's what we're going to be breaking down. But the developmental projects are people that we will be breaking down too. But yeah, swing tackles, day 3, solid players, but we're not going to talk too much about them. But I think that there's solid swing tackles. Javon Foster, also out of Missouri, that you could get in that 4th round range. That could be a good backup and potentially push some of these tackles as well. So let's get right into it with my top 10. Actually, we're going to go with the top 12, because we're going to start in my developmental projects tier, and my tackle number 12. This might shock a lot of people, because this guy's projected to go in the 2nd round, and I just didn't see it on tape. And that's Kingsley Suamataia, the junior tackle out of BYU, 6'4", 326, and ultimately, like I said, on tape, I just didn't really see it. And you see the athleticism on tape, and that's why he's the 43rd overall ranked prospect. Tackle 9 on the consensus big board. He's tackle 12 on my board. He's projected to go in the 2nd round, but he's, yet again, a developmental tackle. And I'm negative when it comes to developmental tackles, because, like I mentioned, I think that you need to be able to block. And I don't see a lot of these developmental tackles really, they don't necessarily pan out all that great. But Kingsley Suamataia, difficult name to say, pass block grade 86.1, allowed 13 pressures last season, and that's at a 97.7% efficiency. Run block grade 52.9, 55.8 in the zone, and 57.9 gap grade. But like I mentioned, the athlete is the thing that is key in his game. But overall, the blocking, I'm like, I don't know if this guy can actually play. And you see that on tape, and you see it in the stats. 5th highest blown run block grade. And watching the tape too, the guy just flat out misses. He flat out whiffs. But it's not just that. Even in the passing game, I just didn't really see some great, like, it just seems like he doesn't know how to use his hands. He doesn't know how to use his feet. But the big thing is he is versatile. He's played both left and right tackle, could be an interior player, but just overall, I was very underwhelmed. But you see the athleticism. That's why he's in my developmental tackles group. But if I keep on moving on, also, I forgot to mention, Kingsley has the Ryan Poles approval as a senior bowl player, but also has it above 8.0 on the RAS score. Then next, tackle 11, and this is where I think there's actually a pretty big jump between Kingsley and this guy, Blake Fisher, my tackle 11 out of Notre Dame, played a lot of right tackle. Reminds me, kind of his position is more of that mauling right tackle. And could he play left? I think so, and I could even think that he could play a little bit of right guard. He's projected to go in the 3rd round, so he could be a pick at 75. And honestly, I'm surprised I don't have him higher. I think Blake Fisher is a very good player. And you look at his grades, they don't jump off the tape or jump off the page. 69.1 run grade, 72 zone grade, 66.1 gap grade. And then you look at the passing numbers, 72.5 pass grade, 15 pressures, 97.4 pass block efficiency. But what I just really liked about his game is just the overall play strength. This guy moves people. He's only 310 pounds, which I find hard to believe, but he just moves people. And that's what you want out of a good run blocker. That's why he's the mauler, in my opinion, because when he's out there, he's shoving people. He's moving people. Think like how Tevin Jenkins, you want that guy that can get people moving backwards so your run game can be successful. Blake Fisher does that. Now, my big concern, why he is tackle 11, is his feet are very funky in pass protection. And that's where you've seen him struggle against speed. And I think at the next level, when he goes against speed, I think he's going to really struggle. So that is the biggest question. And that's why, too, if he moves inside, I mean, he is 6'6". He might be too tall for the guard position. But if he did move inside, I think that he could be a phenomenal guard because of just the pure mauling mentality that this guy has. And drafting a guard that has tackle size in the 3rd round, not so bad. But I really do think he just needs to work going against more speed players. And then this guy could be pretty darn good. I really do like Blake Fisher, even though he is tackle 11. He's tackled number 12 on the consensus big board, number 90th on the consensus board. But let's go to 10. Let's start doing the top 10s. And we're still in developmental tackle range. And this might shock some people because a lot of people are super high on this guy. He's projected to go late 1st, early 2nd. And he's my tackle number 10. He's the consensus tackle 7, number 30th player overall. That's Tyler Guyton. He played at the Senior Bowl, has the Ryan Poles stamp. He's tackle out of Oklahoma, 6'7", 322. This dude is a crazy good athlete. And I think I have his testing numbers, 9.73 as the RAS score, 94-inch arms. He also has a 6'7", and just very, very, very tall. But also, what he has is 5.19 40-yard dash, which is solid. It just overall, his grades are good. But he's that typical guy that we normally have that is the prototypical tackle, which actually reminds me a lot of his teammate, which I'm blanking on his name on, out of Oklahoma last season, or the Iwanya Morris, where it's a prototypical size. And when he actually blocks well, he's phenomenal. He looks great. But that's the problem about a developmental player is, okay, you got to just continue to see him play more and more and more and more. He could be someone that you just kind of stash on your team. So if we're talking about the Bears, I don't really see that, especially if he's going to go late 1st round, early 2nd. I think it's going to be, that's why I'm not a big fan of Tyler Guyton, tackle number 10 for me, but the athleticism just pops off the tape. That's why he's higher than some of the others. But even then, he only gave up 12 pressures last season, which was good for 98.2% pass block efficiency, which is good. But when I saw some of the reps at the Senior Bowl, it just seemed like he struggled against a lot of people. Now, one of those people was Latu, but still, I just felt like I didn't necessarily love him, but inconsistent hands, inconsistent technique just needs to develop. which the Bears might look at and go, we could develop him. But speaking of development, this is my last developmental prospect before we get into some of the bigger ones. And also, sorry for the people watching on YouTube. I don't know why Canva made a couple of the backgrounds black and just kind of looks a little weird, but you already saw the previous one. Strength, weakness, and details are all in black now. But this is a Ryan Poles guy. This is a Senior Bowl, but also a very good athlete. And that's Patrick Paul, offensive tackle out of Houston, 6'7", 331, benched 30 reps, 36-inch arms, 40-yard dash, 5.13, and a 10-yard split of 1.77. 5.13 is above 8. That is a good 40-yard dash for a big man, junior out of Houston. And this guy is your typical Houston tackle. He is very, very good when it comes to pass protection. And honestly, he could even be higher in the next tier. I really like Patrick Paul. The only thing is when you see his feet, he's got those lead bricks on his feet sometimes. Even though that he tested very well, he's very, very heavy-footed. And sometimes it does look like you had to check to make sure that the YouTube videos, when you're watching the tape, that it's not in slow motion sometimes. Because sometimes he's a bit slow of a mover, but you got to love his pass blocking. 91.5 pass block grade, 9 pressures allowed, 98.9 pass block efficiency. And it's not just the numbers. You see him, when people try to hit him with power, he anchors down and stops them. And he's got this crazy length to him that he's able to stop any sort of finesse moves that come his way. Patrick Paul could be a really good, he's projected to go day 2. He could be a really good find for the Chicago Bears. Like I said, my tackle 9, consensus tackle 10, the 65th overall prospect. Patrick Paul is a darn good player that I think has that upside as a pass protector, but you just need to worry about the heavy-footed is a little scary, but still, I just thought gives you everything that you want with the length, the frame, and a true pass blocker. And for those curious, run block grade 69.4, 70.3 zone grade, and 64.3 gap grade. Just good, solid player that I really like. And I know some people are really down on him, but Patrick Paul, he could be one of those players that's starting for a team and just kind of giving you like that Braxton Jones-esque production. And that's something too that I want to talk about is if the Bears were to draft a tackle, I want them better than Braxton Jones. I think that Patrick Paul could be Braxton Jones. I actually saw someone compare Patrick Paul to Braxton Jones, which I don't really agree, but I think he could be that level of player. But I think they play different styles overall. But Patrick Paul, very good pass blocking offensive tackle. So now we're getting to the next group of tackles for me, which is in the late first round, but otherwise known as these guys are my starters with questions. Because these players, it's not just questions of if they're going to be a guard or a tackle. It's more about just the questions of their overall play. And my tackle number 8, I'm actually pretty high on this guy. This is the overall tackle number 11, number 75 on the consensus big board. Someone that the Bears have spoken to a decent amount. Kiran Amegadjie out of Yale. Or Amegadjie out of Yale, senior, 6'5", 323. And like I said, my tackle 8 projected to go in the third round, right at pick 75. He could be a left tackle, a left guard for you. PFF grade of 89.5, but did not play a lot of games, only 4 games last season. But this guy moves. He pops off the tape when you put it on. 87.9 run grade last season, 87.8 zone grade. So if you want that left tackle that gives you the outside zone flexibility, that's what Kiran gives you. Just an absolutely phenomenal just zone blocker. But then from the passing perspective, 79.9 pass grade, 5 pressures, which was a 98 efficiency. That was only in 4 games, though. Keep in mind as well. But yeah, this guy more so reminds me of Braxton Jones. But yet again, would you draft another Braxton Jones to replace Braxton Jones or be the backup to Braxton Jones? But I say Braxton Jones in a good way. I'm a big Braxton Jones fan, and I love what Braxton Jones puts on tape as a run blocker. And that's what you see out of Amegadjie. He's just incredible at that run blocking game. And I think my big question mark is you see how upright he plays. And he is a big question mark. That's why he's in my starters with questions, because he played against a lower level of competition, did not play a lot last season. But when you see this guy play, he really pops. He really pops. And I think this could be a darn good football player if you just kind of teach him, don't be standing straight upright. You're going to get pushed back at the NFL level. I think he's darn good. I really like him, and that's why he's in this tier with some other players. So my next player that I want to talk about, the last episode that I released, I realized I was like, why the heck am I so high on this person when I know that I'm negative on this person? And why am I low on this other person when I'm kind of high on him? So I shifted my big board around and made it make more sense, because as I was talking about, I'm like, I got to lower that guy on my big board. And I'm talking about JC Latham. Yet again, Canva messed up the little graphics a little bit, but 6'6", 342 out of Alabama, the junior. And yeah, when we were talking about him to the Bears, I am not a big fan of JC Latham. I think very, very heavy-footed. I think also highly penalized player, lots of mistakes on tape. And I don't like my tackles to have that high variance. I don't want Caleb Williams to get drilled. And I think that there's a lot of better offensive linemen as well. I still have kind of like that early second round grade on this guy. So I don't absolutely hate him. I just don't see the first round hype with this player, because I know that he's huge. I know that he plays at Alabama, but like I said this before, the Alabama tackles really haven't succeeded as of recent memory. Alex Leatherwood, and you could think of the Evan Neal. Some of these tackles that were better prospects have kind of flopped. They get the most out of their tackles when they're out there. Reminds me a little bit of right tackle Donovan Smith, where he just keeps on making these mistakes, but he's a solid player. 81.7 pass block grade, 14 pressures, 98.1% efficiency, 79.6 run grade, 86.1 zone grade, which is crazy. He can still move, and a 68.7 gap grade. And that's the thing too, is you look at that gap grade, and for those that don't know, when you play in a gap scheme, it's about dominating the person in front of you, really just taking control and destroying that guy, while zone's all about being in your zone, making sure the person doesn't get past you and just owning your zone and controlling that. Latham, I didn't see that level of domination, especially someone this big. You expected him to just be able to dominate and just completely plow the dude over, but he's not really doing that. And he's huge. He's freaking huge, but he can't do that. He just doesn't do that on film. He doesn't have that killer instinct that I know that the Bears want out of their offensive linemen. I'm not a big fan, but I will say, even though he's giant, the dude has some quick hands. His hand usage is very good. He wins with his hands. And yeah, I think that the reason why he's still high, good hands, good athleticism, good size. The mistakes are something where I want a consistent offensive tackle. And that's why to me, Latham is this far down my board. But I know I get people are high on him. I'm just not one of those people. but let's carry on to my tackle 6. And this is someone I'm excited to talk about, because I'm a little bit higher on this guy than the consensus. And that's Jordan Morgan, tackle out of Arizona. He fits the mold for what Ryan Poles wants. Now, the only thing with Jordan Morgan that's a big negative is some people are curious if he's going to be a tackle or if he's actually going to be a guard, because 33 inches is kind of the magical number for arm length, and he measured in at 32.875. Now, is that really going to make a difference? We'll see. But also at his exact 6'5 measurement, that's in the 39th percentile. So not the tallest, but still decently tall, 3'11". But I got to say, this guy, if the Bears want a tackle that can run, this is that player. He's just seems like he plays very light. And the way that I kind of put it is he just stays in front of the player. Senior at Arizona, has played over 2,000 snaps, tore his ACL in 2022, comes back and still is crushing it. Still looks very good. And sometimes this guy just gets in front of the player in front of him. He's not plowing people over. He's not absolutely dominating. He wins by staying in front of the player. I think that Jordan Morgan might have one of the highest floors out of some of these offensive tackles that we're going through. I think Jordan Morgan's going to be a player in the NFL, whether it's at left tackle or at left guard. And that's where I was even pressured. I was like, I could put him higher. I just don't think his ceiling is super high. I think his ceiling is just a solid 10-year starter. And that's what I really like about him. He's projected to go late first, early second. Jordan Morgan, very good player. 87.3 pass block grade, 14 pressures, 98% efficiency, 77 grade in the run. But yeah, like I said, the dude just gets in front of him. But the arm length, you kind of see it show up on tape where it like he can run out on a screen and he just looks phenomenal, quick, speedy. But then you see him going against a larger guy and the 32-inch arms really kind of show up. You know, he does look a little stubby, but then the big, powerful players in the run game, he just doesn't move the players overall. But I will say too, he went against Latu and played pretty well against him as well. Just a very smart, experienced player. He's going to be a player at the next level. He's going to be a starter. But the height, the next people that we're talking about, they have high ceilings. They could be some phenomenal players. Jordan Morgan is just someone you kind of shift around, and he's going to be a good cog inside of your offensive line. That's where maybe he's not the perfect person for the Bears in that area, but still just a good player. But let's talk about my tackle number 5. And I moved this guy up. I watched a little bit more tape. I still am not in love with him as much as some of the other players. He's not in my starter tier. This guy's actually still in my starters with questions, and that's Troy Fautanu. One of the best athletes that I've seen at a tackle position. 9.62 RAS score, 5.01 40-yard dash at 317, 1.7 10-yard split, which is in the 96th percentile. But the big question, he's 6'3.6. That is short. And I really do mean that. You look at his arm length, it's 34 inches. And that's why I did move him up, because I don't think he's a tackle. I see guard. I see guard. I look at him and I'm like, I think this guy's going to be a guard. And that's where I also like him for the Bears, because I think he can compete with Braxton Jones at that left tackle position. And if he loses, he's your starting left guard. You move Tevin Jenkins over and you tell Nate Davis to go hit the trails, right? I think Fautanu is a very good, I think he's a solid player, and it's just the athleticism. The athleticism just jumps off of the tape, and that's his calling card. But yet again, when you're only like 6'3", very, 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 very small, but long arms. And that's why guard, in my opinion. 88.2 pass block grade, allowed 23 pressures, 97.9 efficiency. Now, the thing that did scare me, right? Why am I scared? Why am I lower on him than others? I think that he's aggressive in a bad way, where he's so athletic that I think that he's able to kind of play over his skis a little bit, or kind of take risks that you really shouldn't be doing at the left tackle position. You should be more foundationally sound, and I think that he's just kind of overreaches and just is over aggressive. And then he's able to make these crazy plays where he reaches, he misses the block, he spins around and blocks the player, right? That's a cool highlight film. In the NFL, that's a sack. You just got cooked. But that's why I'm a little bit lower on him. And that's where I think this guy could be phenomenal. One of the best guards, actually, honestly. I think that he could be a top tier, top flight guard, just because I think he can be more aggressive on the inside. I think his size is more there on the inside as well. And I think if you have him pulling in motion, he's going to be good. But run block grade 2, 61.9, not great, and a 59.6 zone blocking grade for him. So that is my starters with questions. It is now time to go into the starters, and I am excited about this. I have 4 players left, and we got to talk about who I have in the starting tier. And this guy, I didn't expect to like this guy so much. To be honest with you, I thought, okay, I was just going to put on his tape and he was just going to be another, just a solid player. Because I was like watching JC Latham. And I was like, I don't really like that. And then I put on this guy and I was like, oh my God, he's really good. And he's not just an athlete. I think a lot of people pin this guy as an athlete, and that's Amarius Mims, tackle out of Georgia, junior, 6'7", 340. You know this guy is good. This guy is huge. This guy is big. And he's not just a developmental tackle. Put on the tape. This guy stops people in their tracks. He played 7 games last year for Georgia in the SEC. 81.2 pass block grade, only allowed 1 pressure. That is a 99.7 efficiency rate. That is insane. And that, I think people are kind of grading him down because he's the consensus tackle number 6. Which I'm like, have you watched him? Have you watched this guy play? Now, that's the problem, though, at the same time. He's only played 803 snaps in 3 seasons. It's hard to see this guy play. But Amarius Mims, like, his teammates love him, first off. Like, he is a phenomenal teammate, and when he's been injured, when he's been on the sidelines, he roots everybody up. 36-inch arms, crazy length. He gives you all the length. But I think when you watch him play, he's not the pure rawness out of, like, some of the other players, like the Blake Fishers, the Tyler Guytons of the world. What you see is someone that does have a good amount of refinement. Reminds me a lot of what Broderick Jones was last year. Not as twitchy as Broderick Jones, but I will say I think Amarius Mims is a better pure blocker than Broderick Jones. And he's projected to go in the first round. He's the 23rd overall prospect. And I think that if the injuries clear up, and it doesn't help that when he was in the combine, he's turning everyone's heads and they're like, dang, this guy's good. And then he gets injured. He gets banged up. That's not a good sign. If the injury history is clear, this guy could be the best tackle. Honestly, his tape is phenomenal. He's my tackle 4 because the next 3 are phenomenal tackle prospects. But Amarius Mims, don't sleep on him. I don't think that the Bears would ultimately get him, but Amarius Mims, though, good player. So now let's get into the top 3. Because the top 3, this is where it gets fun. Because also, let's talk about this too. The Bears, would they go after Amarius Mims? I don't really think so. Unless they do think they can move him over to left tackle, Amarius Mims might be on that list, but we know how the Bears are with injuries. This guy might be the number 9 pick if the Bears want to go offensive tackle. And the reason why I want to bring up the whole offensive tackle thing too, the people that have brought up the Bears drafting offensive linemen have been Brad Biggs, have been Courtney Cronin, Peter Schrager, Field Yates, people that are connected with the Bears, are very connected in the NFL circles. Now, I've also heard Mel Kiper Jr. talking about this, going, no one knows anything. This is the godfather of the NFL draft. And he goes, I've been doing this for so long. The only people that tell me things, like tell me legitimate things, are things I don't announce to people. Because he's like, if I say it, they'll know that they can't trust me anymore. So it's smokescreen season, but offensive tackles, offensive linemen are people that are being brought up. But my tackle number 3 that I want to bring up, that I think if the Bears were to go tackle at number 9, because I don't think Joe Alt is going to be there, but Olu Fashanu out of Penn State, junior, 6'6", 312. Caleb Williams' former teammate. This guy, one of the best pass blocking tackles that we've seen. Phenomenal. Has not let up a single sack. 88.4 pass block grade, allowed 10 pressures, 98.6 efficiency. Phenomenal. Great hands in the pass blocking game. Great feet in the pass blocking game. You have questions about his core strength because with some power, people can really just kind of pop him a little bit. But his legs, he's got very, very, very phenomenally strong legs that kind of keep him holding up. But in the running game, you just don't see that. You don't see the level of dominance. And yet again, this was another guy that was seen as a blue chip player. But when people saw him in the running game, people started to question just, okay, how good is he? And now he's the number 14 prospect, tackle 2, my tackle 3. But it's very close with 2 and 3, like literally neck and neck. And that's why I think that the Bears might really like this guy. I think he could step in day one, and because of his pass blocking upside, that's why I think that he could step in day one, because this guy could just he'll be the real deal from the pass blocking side. But when it comes down to the run blocking, that's where the questions come in. But also, I want to bring this up too. In the pass blocking game, or in the run blocking game, 12.9% negative play over the last 2 years, which was in the 10th percentile. That's not good. He just looks a little bit lost, doesn't know how to go to the next level inside of the run blocking snaps. But here's another piece. Who looked like that last year? Darnell Wright. Darnell Wright, large. When he had hands on you, for people that watched highlight films, you go, what are you talking about? He's a phenomenal run blocker. Watch the tape. The guy was very awkward in the running game, and he didn't know where to block, didn't know how to block in the running game, but when he got his hands on you, the dude was taking you for a ride. The guy was going to bring you out. He was going to go blindside on you and just throw you over the rafters. I think that that's another reason why I think that the Bears might really like him. Chris Morgan might say, listen, just give me someone that I know that can pass block really well like Olu, and I'll teach him how to run block. This is someone that I'm really curious how much the Bears love him, because they could look at this guy and go, let's bring back Caleb's teammate. Let's get this true pass blocking left tackle, and let's move Braxton to left guard. Let's move Tevin back to right guard. And now we have our offensive line. We have our offensive line in the future. We feel comfortable about this line. Let's go. Let's freaking go, right? Because I think if anything, Nate Davis is the person that's being replaced, not Braxton Jones. Braxton Jones would just be relocated, I think, if anything else. But Olu, I like Olu. I really, really, really like Olu, and that's why I think the Bears will like him too and say maybe we can get something out of him. But let's go into the tackle number 2. And tackle number 2, I downgraded this guy from elite to starters because I watched a little bit more tape, but still his tape is fun. And that's Taliese Fuaga, the right tackle out of Oregon State, junior, 6'5", 324. His idol is Darnell Wright. He really respects Darnell Wright's game. And this guy he plays like Darnell Wright did. He's tackle number 2, number 15 overall prospect, tackle number 3, and it's just the power. The power that he plays with just is so much fun to watch. He's a very good athlete as well. 9.63 RAS score, 33.125-inch arms, and was in the 80th percentile in the 40-yard dash at a 5.13 at 324 pounds. And this guy's just explosive. 32-inch vertical leap. And when you watch him just fly, I love it when he's out in open space because you just see the linebacker like, no, don't hit me. And he looks to kill the other players across from him. That's what he's trying to do. And that's why I think the Bears too look at this guy and go, okay, I know that he's a right tackle and I know that we have Darnell Wright, but seriously, can we use this guy again? And maybe you could throw him at right guard, honestly, because he is a little bit smaller when you look at the numbers, 6'5", 6'5.6", which is 60th percentile for height for tackles. And yet again, arm length is right around that threshold, so to speak, at that 33.125. So they might see it like, hey, this guy could be a phenomenal guard and replace Nate Davis. Now, do you draft a guard with your 9th overall pick? Probably not, unless you're drafting Quentin Nelson back in the day. But this guy, crazy good athlete, 80 pass block grade, allowed 12 pressures at a 98.2% efficiency and a 91.3 zone block grade for the run game. Insane. And just literally was one of the best run blockers I've seen. But that's where this is kind of the opposite of Olu. One of the best run blockers we've seen. And unlike Darnell Wright, I think that he's much more refined coming out of college in that run blocking game. But the big question to me is just the pass blocking. He's not bad in pass protection, but I see people like beat him on the inside. He's trying to just easily kind of set the outside. So a smart pass rusher goes, you're always trying to beat me to the outside. I'm going to move do an inside move, and then instantly Fuaga just can't handle that. Still very good. The fourth highest graded offensive tackle from PFF at 88.2. Fuaga, my tackle too, but I think ultimately, I think that the Bears are going to look at Fuaga and Olu and go, both of these guys, pretty darn good. So that means, as much of you would already know, and this is my only elite grade that I have on the offensive line, because this guy's just so good. Joe Alt, 6'8", 330 out of Notre Dame, junior, 9.93 RAS score. Just absolutely nuts. 5.05 40-yard dash, which is in the 90th percentile. And you look to 92nd percentile, 1.73 10-yard split. This guy is just great. 34-inch arms, which for being 6'8" is actually kind of short, but still 34-inch arms. This guy is crazy good. Blue chip player, in my opinion. Can't miss. And the reason why I dismiss the Bears taking him is there's no way that the Titans and all these other teams skip out on Joe Alt when you have this good of a left tackle that is available. Literally checks every box. That's what I put for his biggest strength, because you just watch him play and you go, that's an offensive lineman that's an NFL offensive lineman. 86.5 run block grade, 91.2 pass block grade, second highest graded tackle in the NCAA according to PFF. Tackle 1 on my board, tackle 1 consensus. He's just good. he's just really, really good. And also too, he has 2 false starts and 2 holds in 3 years as a starting left tackle. 2 false starts and 2 holds. This guy does not commit penalties. He does not make mistakes. This guy is good. 99.1 pass block efficiency last year. And he's been one of the best tackles for the last 2 years in the entire NCAA. And also, too, this was a former tight end that went over to Notre Dame, and they said, we can make you into a tackle. So he's learning the position, but you see the athleticism of a tight end out there. But I will say, if I have to say some weaknesses, I don't see this like the true elite of the elite anchors, I guess you could say, and also kind of lunges a bit in some of the pass block sets where he's eager to just kind of get hands on someone, so he just kind of lunges out at them. But yeah, it does get pushed back a little bit, so it's not like he's just this absolute brick wall every time someone tries to beat him with power. But yet again, you're nitpicking. This guy is good. This guy is freakishly good. And if he's there, I've been relatively anti-tackle. If Joe Alt is available, you take him. You don't question. You don't question drafting a blue chip player like Joe Alt. He's just simply that good. So I hope that you enjoyed this offensive tackle group. And if you're still listening to an offensive tackle going through 12 offensive tackles, congratulations, you're a draft head and you're pumped just like me for the NFL draft season. So if you would help out the channel, drop a like, comment who your favorite offensive lineman is, subscribe, rate the show 5 stars as well. Click the link down below and also pick up your draft guide. I know you'll love it. And with that, Unbearable Sports Podcast, we are out.
Yeah, she's got some nice long hair and